What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? AJ Good here at the House of Masks, where we unbox and review cool stuff almost every single day. And in today's video, we have a highly anticipated one. A while back, I did a reaction slash review slash correction of a Revolver's ranking list. Now, really, the whole point of that video was just to correct some false information that they had in some of the paragraphs regarding the masks, but I couldn't help myself from disagreeing with certain things that they said in the order that they placed Corey's masks in. That got a lot of people asking if I would do the ranking myself, which of course I am going to do. So I had a little bit of time this evening and I figured why not just freestyle it and go for it. Now I don't have a script or anything for this video, so I'm not sure how quality it's going to be, but I did write out my list from worst to best before sitting down to make this video, and we're just gonna do our best. So without further ado, the House of Masks ranking of Corey Taylor's Slipknot masks from worst to best. Enjoy. So one thing to keep in mind with this list is that I'm going to go for the same general rule set as the Revolver article, and that is album by album, meaning that I won't be ranking each individual variation of a mask. For instance, the Iowa Corey has a few different variations with multiple paint jobs. I will only be ranking the Iowa mask as a whole. Now, the only time that you're going to see two different masks from one album cycle on this list is if it is a completely different mask from start to finish, meaning the sculpt, the paint job, everything in between is totally different than the prior version. So on this list, you will not see a variation of Iowa masks. However, you will see a variation of the two different Gray Chapter masks. I hope that makes sense, and with that being said, let's hop on into this list with number 9, my least favorite, the Sonosphere dummy. So this is technically an All Hope Is Gone mask, surprise, surprise, and what can really be said about this? Now, for years, people in the community had been nailing self-titled Corey Taylor dummy replicas. But for some reason, Slipknot's own mask makers could just not get this right, and boy, did it show. Now, I heard that Corey stopped wearing this mask very quickly during that memorial run for Paul Gray because it was uncomfortable. However, I have a feeling that Corey probably saw a photo of himself wearing this mask and thought, you know what? Nope. I'm done with that. So definitely, absolutely, hands down, the Sonosphere callback slam dummy conversion is my least favorite Corey Taylor mask of all time. That leads us right on into number 8, the regular All Hope Is Gone mask. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this one, and I've got to say, just a forewarning, that I totally understand and respect this mask, and it definitely served its purpose with the band. However, the amount of this mask that we saw just made me absolutely crazy. We saw the absolute fuck out of this mask. And personally, aesthetically, it's just not one of my favorites. With that being said, I do totally understand what the purpose of this mask was, and it definitely served that purpose well, so I'm not going to shit on this mask whatsoever. I'm just gonna say that it is my next to least favorite mask of Corey Taylor's. Number 7, the We Are Not Your Kind V2. Now, I have a feeling that there is going to be some confusion here because we technically already got a We Are Not Your Kind V2 of the V1. So I'm just gonna say that V2 of the V1 is the second variation, the fixed variation. So look out for that later on the list. And as for right now, we are officially titling this mask the We Are Not Your Kind V2 because it is the second variation of a mask that we saw on the We Are Not Your Kind cycle. Again, I totally understand what this mask is. I totally understand what purpose it serves. However, there were just a few little misses for me. Now, I have seen some edits of this mask that would just take it to the next level, but even with those edits, it still just comes off more as a horror movie mask or even a mushroom head mask to me than it does a Slipknot mask. If I had to make some changes to this mask to make it feel a little more Slipknot-esque, those slight changes would be making the mask a little less symmetrical. As you can see, all of the stitching on the mask is completely symmetrical. I would probably pop those little eyelets out, although I do feel like they totally give the mask the feeling that it does have right now. I feel like those little tiny eyelets are a very, very important part of the piece. However, I would take them away. And the last thing that I would do is add some scraggly, nasty strands of gross hair. Not dreads, because we don't need to see Corey Taylor wearing dreads again. That was made very, very apparent by the Sonosphere dummy. However, I think some gross patches of long black or brown, greasy, nasty hair would just take this mask to a whole new level. Again, I'm not gonna shit on this mask. I think that it is a great mask. It is just one of my least favorites. And I think that as it weathers over time and gets face paint on it and Corey makes some slight changes to it, as he most likely will, it's going to get better and better. Number 6 is going to be the Gray Chapter Chapter V1. Now remember earlier how I said when there are multiple variations of the same mask, I will just be counting the mask itself as a whole. All of those variations get cycled into this one choice. We do have a V2 Gray Chapter mask, but I am talking specifically about the Gray Chapter V1, and that includes all of the different paint jobs that Corey gave this mask over time. Now I do somewhat have a significant connection to this mask. The Gray Chapter was definitely the Slipknot album that gave me some restored faith in the band, and I got to see Slipknot more times on that album cycle than I ever did before, and not to mention that was the time that I interviewed Corey Taylor, and I got to hang out with Jay Weinberg amongst other interactions with members of one of my favorite bands of all time, of course. So this was just a very, very special cycle, and although I am not a huge fan of the mask, something just resonates with me and that album cycle, so I have to put it a little higher on the list than some of the other ones, and I think that that is literally just due to a sentimental and at this point almost nostalgic reasoning. So I definitely think that it is a very, very lackluster mask. The outer mask just kind of looks like Jeff Hatrix from Mushroom Head, and the under mask looks even worse somehow. Aesthetically, I am definitely not a fan of this mask at all, and again, if it weren't for those sentimental reasons, it would be ranked far, far lower on my list. Number 5, we have the Gray Chapter V2. Now, Corey Taylor did premiere a completely new mask during the Gray Chapter cycle, more towards the end, but we will say the middle, just to make this make a little bit more sense, and I'm not really sure what the reason for the switch was. We did see this mask premiere with Corey Taylor's neck brace, so maybe the other mask just didn't work with the neck brace that he had after having surgery on his neck, but I will say that this mask looked fantastic, especially the under mask. I'm not a huge fan of the outer mask. The mask itself just seems a little too big, but once Corey Taylor ripped that top half off, this mask took on a whole different life. And to be honest, this mask almost gave me a Gwar feel. Like, it definitely made me think of Flatus Maximus of Gwar. I'm not sure if I'm alone in that. I've never really seen anyone else make that comparison, but there was just something really, really cool about this under mask. Corey's hair had started to change, and this mask did not cover nearly as much of it as the V1, so we got to see a little bit more of Corey's hair, and I definitely think that that accented the mask very nicely. So yeah, all in all, I really don't have too much to say about the mask, but I definitely don't have too much to complain about with it. This is a very neutral piece for me on this Corey Taylor list. Alright, we are getting into the nitty gritty. Number 4, Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses. This was a very tough call to make because I grew up with this mask. As I am making this video, I'm almost regretting putting this as number 4 and not as number 3, but I will stick to what I was feeling. And the reason that I put this mask at number 4 and not number 3 initially is because this mask was just another drop in the bucket of things that made me think that we were seeing a different kind of Slipknot than what I fell in love with. This mask was just another step away from what made me fall in love with original Slipknot masks. Now, I'm not going to deny the fact that Corey looks absolutely fucking amazing in this mask, especially with that crazy colored hair, but for some reason, I did not see the natural progression between Iowa and Volume 3. I can almost sort of see it now, what with the stitching and whatnot, but it's still just a little bit too far. You gotta think we went from the dummy and the ghost glow straight into Iowa, and then we got the Volume 3 mask, and it was just very, very different. And clearly, Corey would continue the trend of drastic changes to his masks, making them almost unrelated, but at the time that this mask premiered, I didn't know what to think. Clearly, I love this look. I love the Volume 3 look for most of the members, and Corey is definitely high up on the list of my favorite appearances for Volume 3. His aesthetic was just fucking awesome. I love the crazy colored hair, and I really do enjoy this mask. However, it just lost the Slipknot feel for me. This felt way more like a horror movie approach than it did a Slipknot approach to me, and for that reason, I put it at number 4 on the list. Number 3. We Are Not Your Kind. Now, before you guys start sending me death threats, please understand that I am ranking this mask as a whole. That includes the alterations. And the alterations, what we originally called the We Are Not Your Kind V2, is what I am referring to here. I am just going to ignore the fact that the promo version ever existed. After Corey fixed this mask by adding some stitches to the cheeks, this easily became one of my all-time favorite Corey Taylor masks, clearly if it is number 3 on my list, and I just don't see how anybody can deny the fact that these shots are fucking awesome. The entire concept behind this mask is amazing. I love the idea of ever-changing face paints beneath the mask, and the mask itself isn't that far off from other Corey masks that we've gotten in the past. This thing definitely had a very dummy slash All Hope Is Gone feel to it, it was just clear, and we got a spectacle underneath, and something that felt very Slipknot-esque. Slipknot has always had some sort of element of tribal feel to them, with smearing face paint on their masks amongst other things. And the ever-changing thing felt like a very Slipknot thing to do as well. Corey wasn't doing the same old paint job under the mask every night. It was a new paint job every single night, and I find that very cool. It definitely makes me think of Clown's 0.5 The Gray Chapter masks and how he changed those for every single show, or Sid Wilson's Iowa paint jobs. Sid always had a different looking paint job going on underneath his mask, and I always really enjoyed seeing that. So the concept of a clear mask, almost like a British female feel, mixed with a mask that has a very Corey Taylor-esque feel, such as the dummy or the All Hope Is Gone, as I mentioned. And then you've got the element of the face paints, much like Sid Wilson would do. This just feels like a very, very Slipknot mask that we hadn't seen for a long time. I feel like a lot of people saw the promo version with the big crazy cheeks, and that was it. They never wanted to see it again, and I can't really blame those people. However, if you did stick around and you saw some of the later variants that we got from Corey once the mask was fixed, this was a super, super fucking cool mask. So with that being said, let's move on to number 2 before someone shows up at my door and shoots me in the head. Number 2 is, of course, the Iowa mask. Again, I'm not picking a singular version. I am including all the Iowa variants as a whole because they were all the same mask. They just had different paint jobs. What can you really say about the Iowa mask? It was a more professional and more polished version of the 2 masks that we got from the self-titled days, with some new twists thrown on via paint jobs. Aesthetically, not one of my favorite masks ever, but when it comes down to Corey Taylor and the Iowa era, it just is what it is. It's only right to stick that in number 2, and I would argue to say that most people would probably stick this at number 1. However, I just find the self-titled era to be that much more special to me, but I've got to give credit where credit is due, and I do love Iowa. So number 2, the Iowa Corey Taylor mask. And that leads us to number 1, the self-titled album, The Dummy, and The Ghost Glow. Yes, I have these tied. I'm sorry, I couldn't pick. Me personally, I love the aesthetic of The Dummy. Nothing will ever top The Dummy for me. However, I do totally, completely, and unarguably. Is that a word? Unarguably? Anyways, I totally get the Ghost Glow. The Ghost Glow was Corey Taylor's mask. The Dummy is great. I love the Dummy. What the fuck is the Dummy supposed to be? But you can say the same exact thing for the Ghost Glow. The only difference is the Ghost Glow looks even grosser, even more obscure, even more what the fuck am I looking at? And for that reason, I can't pick, so they are tied. The self-titled album, both of the self-titled masks get a tie. And this is something that you probably won't see on most Corey Taylor Slipknot mask lists because for some reason people can't separate these two. I see a massive, massive difference, and when I think of the Dummy, I think of the Wait and Bleed video. That is my all-time favorite Corey Taylor look. However, when I think of Corey Taylor and the self-titled era, I think of Dynamo, I think of Tattoo the Earth, I think of the Ghost Glow. And for those reasons, again, I just can't pick. But I have a feeling that a lot of you guys probably saw that coming, and you guys definitely saw that self-titled was going to be number 1. So, now that you've heard my list, I am curious to hear yours. Please drop your Corey Taylor mask ranking from worst to best in the comments down below. I am very, very curious to see what your guys' is, and I'm looking forward to a general discussion with a few of you because I am sure that I'm going to find more than a couple of these lists to be very, very interesting. With all of that being said, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you very, very much for watching, and let me know if you'd like to see more of these in the future. Maybe we can do some with Joey or Clown, or really any member of the band. But until then, this has been AJ Good here at the House of Masks telling you to say no to drugs and alcohol, and yes to Slipknot masks, and we will see you guys later.